have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum, and welcome back.
She comes, she goes, she comes back, she leaves again. She just doesn't want to work every week. Luckily, Marin is available to
nice to have you
share
back.
this enterprise
That's
with you.
Ann Northrup.
Yeah, here I am.
Well, some interesting news this week. I'm going to call her Trump's current squeeze, internet troll Laura Loomer, responds to an attack by Senator Lindsey Graham by telling him to come out of the closet.
And was there a hue and cry all over the land? No, there was not.
Well, the mainstream press kind of buried the exact nature of the story.
We'll talk more about it. We're in headlines at the moment. Meanwhile, President Biden still at the, what's the name of the desk?
The Resolute desk?
Yes, something like that, yes. He did a sit-down interview with the Washington Blade, the first for a gay outlet with a sitting president.
Maybe President Biden, you know, if you think maybe you'd like to come on here and talk to us. Don't laugh.
We'd even take a StreamYard interview.
We would. U.S. House Republicans, however, have advanced a bill attacking trans students.
But in Florida, a court is making a school district return LGBTQ plus books to the school library.
In San Francisco, they have landmarked the big rainbow flag that was created by Gilbert Baker in Harvey Milk Plaza.
There's a little controversy around that. We'll mention it. The killer of trans woman Savannah Williams has been sentenced to 30 years in prison in Minneapolis.
And we lost this week legendary Chicago female impersonator Chilli Pepper.
There is controversy over an out WNBA star endorsing Harry Potter-themed shoes.
2 women in France were fined for calling the First Lady there a trans woman.
And I bet you don't know what cameo appearance the First Lady made this week.
No, I don't.
I'm going to tell you about it because I saw it. The country of Georgia has passed a Russian-style, I would say maybe even worse, anti-LGBTQ bill.
And there were lots of LGBTQ angles at the Emmy Awards.
Yep. And Andy will review The Roommate on Broadway starring Mia Farrow and Patti LuPone.
So
very exciting.
So, you know, as usual, we start with the presidential race, and
Yes.
It's nice to see Kamala Harris continuing to integrate her support for LGBTQ rights into her stump speeches and into her interviews.
Very nice, and nice to see her rising in the polls, too. Inexorably, I would like to think.
Especially among us. Human Rights Campaign surveyed 2,500 LGBTQ Americans. 95% of you are registered to vote.
I have a hard time believing that statistic.
93 of the 2,500 that they interviewed.
Don't you think that's a little
93.
skewed?
We're very attuned, especially people who watch the show.
Okay.
93% are motivated to vote. And then here's how the vote breaks down from the people that they interviewed. 8% for Trump, 77% for Harris, the remaining either third party or they're not going to vote.
Shame on you. All right, well, our metric for judging Harris's rise on the poll is in Florida.
Yes.
At the Villages, where the golf cart parade is growing for Kamala Harris.
Got a picture of that.
Here is the evidence. Picture, this is video. This is a 4-mile long golf cart parade in the Villages in Florida.
Led by Doug Emhoff, wasn't it?
I hope so.
Didn't he kick it off?
He may have. But the Villages is notoriously Trump territory, very, very conservative, and very huge area in Florida, basically I want to say retirement community, but they're all very active.
So
they got a lot of golf courses.
Our side
there.
is coming out. I will say I got a couple of emails this week from Republican viewers who say we're totally biased, and I suffer from Trump derangement syndrome, apparently. But, you know, I keep asking for specifics about what we're saying that's wrong about Trump, and they never respond. Well,
it's an interesting conversation, which we probably can't have at length right now, but why people would support Trump, particularly from our communities.
Well, one of them said something about I had more money in my pocket, which is like, I would
wrong.
say that's
it's just wrong.
Haven't you noticed the stock market is at record levels? I mean, you know.
And they're cutting interest rates this week, and everything's in better shape. And you may remember COVID.
I'm not saying, you know, inflation wasn't a problem when you go to the grocery store, but that was a worldwide phenomenon that you can't blame on.
And look, I want everyone to be secure with housing and food and whatever, but it sounds a little too much like it's all about me, and I don't care about the rest of the world or my neighbors even. It's really just about how much money is in my pocket.
I'll probably get some more emails and we can keep
Better
that going.
you than me. But we did pull out some new supporters of Kamala and Tim Walz from the pop culture neighborhood. Billie Eilish and her brother Phineas made a little video about registering to vote.
Today is National Voter Registration Day, and we are asking you to please join us in going to iwillvote.com to check your status and vote early like we do.
We are voting for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz because they are fighting to protect our reproductive freedom, our planet, and our democracy.
We can't let extremists control our lives, our freedoms, and our future. The only way to stop them and the dangerous Project 2025 agenda is to vote and elect Kamala Harris.
Vote like your life depends on it, because it does.
Go to iwillvote.com and make a plan to vote early.
Love you guys.
iwillvote.com. Now we know 95% of you are already registered, but for those of you who are not.
And it would have been nice if she, having a self-professed queer identity, had thrown that into the list, but we'll take what we can get at this point.
All right, so
anything
more on Kamala?
No.
Okay, so let's talk about Trump. So he even says now that his biggest applause lines are attacking critical race theory and transgender people.
Yes.
He bragged about it. He said, you know, putting these lines out there, it's like an instant poll, and I get such a great response from it. You know, but question is, are people going to vote on that issue?
I think we could give him points for transparency. There is no unexpressed thought in his head. It just goes right out there. And similarly with J.D. Vance, who says, we make up these stories to get attention. The mainstream press doesn't pay as much attention to us. We make up these stories.
And he, you know, refuses to back down on fomenting that violence.
Rise and Resist was active this week, and this is a video of a little action they did downtown in Manhattan at the federal courthouse. They projected these slogans on the tower of the building there, all the
Trump crimes.
All the Trump crimes, all the horrible things he is. If we were closer to the monitor, we might be able to read them.
Yes.
But they did a great job.
Yeah. Thank you, Rise and Resist.
And then I'm trying to read that. All right.
So enough of that. The Rise and Resist. Also, you know, we're getting a little sick of our hometown newspaper, the New York Times. They've hired all these right-wing columnists at this point, and they normalize. Well, this is what the demonstration was about. Let's put the picture up. Stop normalizing Trump. They went to the Rise and Resist, went to the New York Times, and said, "Look, he's a felon, he's a racist, he's a convict. This is all that he is, and you treat him just like he's any other candidate."
Yes, you engage in this or that. You equalize him with the other side. You do not explicitly talk about him. And then you have these right-wing columnists like Bret Stephens, who this week writes a column saying, Well, I'm not going to vote for Trump, but I'm not ready to vote for Kamala.
Yeah.
She has to earn my vote.
Well, you know, I'm not going to waste any time on idiots like you.
I must say, I don't read them. I
don't read them either.
You know my method. You read the first paragraph and the last paragraph. That's all you need to do with this stuff.
Yes. And of course, if you're looking for a movie or a play review, Anne says just read the last paragraph.
Yep. All you need.
Sometimes they take a while to meander into it.
They do, but you know, if it intrigues you and you're more interested, you can go back and read more of it. But really, if you're just short on time, read the last paragraph.
So, you know, we said last week that Trump was prepped for the debate with extremists Matt Gaetz and Tulsi Gabbard, but he was also accompanied to the debate by anti-LGBTQ fanatic Chaya Raichik of the Libs of TikTok, the one who is fomenting sickening violence on anything related to trans or gay around the country.
East Coast resident who's on the school board in Oklahoma,
Right.
then censoring the curriculum.
And he travels, this has gotten a lot of attention, he travels with Laura Loomer, 31, who he clearly is in love with. I mean, look at those poses. He's got his arms around her. I think this is going to be the first lady. I'm being serious about this.
Yep.
If he is elected, he's going to do what he wants. He's in love with her, clearly. He's got that same stupid look on his face that he had when he was standing next to Stormy Daniels.
And this woman is a horror show. She makes Melania look like a liberal.
I mean, she's been overheard saying to him, I love you, I love you. So where do we start with her? She wants Democrats executed after the election. She literally said that in a radio interview to the point where the right-wing outlet ended the interview because it was so extreme. She said 9/11 was an inside job and Trump took her to ground zero. She calls herself a white advocate at the American Renaissance Conference that attracts the KKK and neo-Nazis. Now, I'm not making this up. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not exaggerating any of this.
And these are not outlier opinions of hers. She does this all day long.
Yes.
This is absolutely her approach to life. And I think you skipped over this too quickly. She thinks 9/11 was an inside job, that the U.S. government knocked down the World Trade Center towers.
Yes.
Maybe she thinks they're still there somewhere. And he took her to the ground zero, September 11th observation.
And yet so many of the people down at ground zero, a lot of them are the surviving partners and family of firefighters and things. They tend to be very conservative and pretty pro-Trump. But they listen to this stuff about your hero.
Yes.
So she's so extreme that she's getting criticized by Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lindsey Graham.
Yes.
Lindsey called her toxic, to which Loomer replied, and I'll read the quote, "When is Lindsey coming out of the closet? We all know you're gay, Lindsey, and that's okay. It's 2024. I like men too. You and I have something in common that we can bond over." So we didn't, and of course, the mainstream press would not reproduce this quote.
No.
You know, they would just say she used an anti-gay slur or something, or blah, blah, blah. I mean, come on, let's have it.
Nor have they gone to Lindsey Graham in any organized way to say so. What's going on here?
He always denies it. Republican Senator
Follow him around. You followed Gary Hart around. You can follow Lindsey Graham around.
Republican Senator Tom Tillis of North Carolina said a Democratic National Committee plant couldn't do a better job than she is to hurt President Trump's chances. We can only hope. Trump, however, called her a strong person, a free spirit. And while he said he doesn't agree with everything she says,
That's his favorite line.
As usual, failed to offer any specifics of where, because he's obviously getting a lot of his lines from her. So while Republicans attack Loomer, they won't attack Trump. They are attacking her. And, you know.
I think it's the 2024 equivalent of I could go shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue and nothing would happen to me. I can travel the country with a woman who is an avowed white supremacist, racist.
His base.
Yeah, and well, I can let her spout all this stuff. I don't have to cover up. I'm trotting her right out there with my arm around her, and nothing will happen to me.
And, you know, no, of course, Melania's nowhere to be seen. She's been seen once with him the entire year.
Well, now she's got a book to promote that's coming out momentarily, so we'll see how much she shows up.
And more about Vance, he said the Proud Boys that were marching in Springfield, we have more about the Proud Boys later, but in Springfield, dodged questions about that and said the media is not focusing on Harris's immigration policies.
You know, for about 1 second, I thought I had reached a moment of agreement with Vance when he said about the stories about Haitians eating cats and dogs and saying, well, you know, the mainstream media is not paying attention to the implications of a flood of immigrants into Springfield, Ohio. So we had to put out this story that's provocative, but, you know, that's what we've been told.
We create the stories.
But we create the stories to make the press pay attention, not that they're lies, but that they're stories. We have to tell it in story form. I'm saying 1 second I was on the way to saying, yes, this is media strategy. And then the woman who made up the story admitted she made up the story and apologized for it. And I thought, okay, yes, you really are lying about this. So he gets nothing.
All right.
Meanwhile, Gwen Walz, the wife of Tim Walz, the Democratic vice presidential candidate, will be the keynote speaker at the Minneapolis HRC dinner this Saturday.
Yes,
so we'll keep an eye on that.
Where are we on our list? Okay, and President Joe Biden, do you remember him? He gave a sit-down interview to the Washington Blade, the first for an LGBTQ newspaper. This was with Christopher Kane. He expressed his admiration for the men and women who broke the back of prejudice against us. To begin, starting at Stonewall, they took their lives into their own hands. And he said, most of the openly gay people that have worked with me tend to have more courage than most other people have. I wanted an administration that looked like America. I'll link to the whole interview. It's
interesting.
Salutary.
Well, I have my concerns about Biden, primarily never having forgiven him for putting Clarence Thomas on the court by treating Anita Hill so shabbily when he was the chair of the Judiciary Committee. But I thought he showed great insight in his analysis of people who've been through such trauma and tribulation, coming out of it braver and more courageous than people who haven't faced that kind of...
He's had his own challenges in life.
He certainly
being
has.
a stutterer.
And he reminded me that he and his family are very close to Sarah McBride, who is about to be elected the first transgender member of the U.S. House of Representatives from Delaware, his home state. She worked with his late son, Beau, I guess when he was Attorney General.
She also worked with the Human Rights Campaign.
Yes, absolutely. But he considers her a good friend.
Yep.
And he says he'll still fight for the Equality Act and regrets not having passed it. He said something that's not a big surprise, that there are good Republicans out there who agree with us, but are intimidated by MAGA. Now, of course, we would say they're just holding onto their jobs.
Well, the Republicans blocked the bill to access IVF nationally. It got 51 votes, but it needed 60 in the Senate in our extremely undemocratic system. So despite party leader Trump's claim to totally be, IVF, positive, which is a lie.
Why?
J.D. Vance didn't even show up for the vote. Maybe they
Doesn't matter.
Well, maybe they read about how these new reproductive technologies, like in vitro gameteogenesis, would allow the creation of eggs or sperm from ordinary body tissue, like skin cells, so that men could have be genetic mothers, women could be genetic fathers, and people could be the offspring of 1, 3, or 4 parents.
Well, this is what we've been anticipating for how a lesbian couple could produce a child without sperm.
And gay men. It's a ways off, but it would let same-sex couples have genetic offspring and let IVF parents pick. Of course, it also let IVF parents pick the most genetically desirable from dozens of embryos.
Did we say that Christopher Kane was the reporter who interviewed Biden? And we celebrate the fact that another Biden-appointed LGBTQ community member has been confirmed by the Senate as a federal judge.
It's a new record, folks. More than Obama managed to appoint in 8 years. Of course, now again, I'm going to remind you, if we don't hold on to the Senate, which is a very, very tough lift, President Harris is going to have a hard time confirming her judges to any court or any position. So, and I look at the whole Ohio race. There are two groups, opposing Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown, who are pouring alone $82 million into that race to stop him.
Well, it's very scary.
And he is leading in the polls, but
And he has overcome these kinds of odds repeatedly. And I'm getting, call me crazy, mildly hopeful about Colin Allred in Texas beating Ted Cruz, which would be fantastic.
That would be absolutely fantastic.
And I think,
or Florida, possibly, against
Florida,
the awful Rick Scott.
Montana.
A boy can dream, can't he?
And a girl. I told you this earlier today. A guy in my building stopped me in the elevator and he said, "Oh, I'm so scared. I'm so depressed. How could it be tied? Blah, blah, blah." And I said, no, calm down. We're on an upward trajectory. We are gaining ground every day.
Ever since Roe v. Wade was overturned.
Yes.
That's what's
ever since Trump was elected in 2016, with the Women's March in January of 2017, we have organized, brought out the grassroots, created, what's the word I want? Anyway, we're winning elections consistently. We won another couple of elections in Philadelphia the other day, this week. So don't despair, as Obama would say, vote. Vote.
All right. Justice Elena Kagan. She gave an interview, and she agreed this past week that the reasoning of her right-wing colleagues in the Dobbs abortion decision, that women had not been free to have abortions earlier in U.S. history, therefore you can never allow it, puts at threat access to contraception, interracial marriage, and gay marriage. She also advocated a stronger ethics code for the justices, especially given the corruption of Thomas and Alito, who she did not cite. But just for advocating an enforceable ethics code, she got called treasonous by a right-wing activist, Kelly Shackelford. But Kagan said the new code of ethics was progress, but insufficient to protect the court and its reputation.
All this so-called originalism is so annoying. It's did they talk about airplanes in the Constitution? And yet they managed to rule on
transportation. They just do what they want, as Justice Roberts was exposed for doing this week.
The Constitution,
in engineering all these decisions to protect Trump, and they want to reelect him so that he can appoint their replacements. They want a Republican in there to replace Thomas and Alito when they retire or die, and Roberts and all those others.
The Constitution is a statement of principles and values, not to be read so literally.
Right. Okay. The U.S. House Committee passed a bill to forcibly out trans students. It was introduced by Representative Tim Walberg, Republican of Minnesota, who previously voiced his support for Uganda's Kill the Gays bill. And this is called the Protect Kids Act, would cut off federal funding to schools that don't tell parents when a student wants to go by a new name or use a different pronoun. Republicans are not in favor of doing anything to protect kids, of course, from school shootings, as we keep pointing out. However, as J.D. Vance says, school shootings, they're a fact of life.
Well, luckily, a court in California had a different point of view. They have forbidden the Chino Valley Board of Education from enforcing a rule they passed about forced outing of trans kids. The court said, no, you can't do that. You can't force kids to be outed to their parents. Cut it out.
Good news from Florida in Nassau County, where the school board in northern Florida there settled a lawsuit with parents, students, and authors by agreeing to return 36 books related to race and LGBTQ people to school libraries, including And Tango Makes Three, which Tim Walz keeps citing. Books had
I love it when he does that.
Books had been challenged by a right-wing advocacy group, Citizens Defending Freedom, who do not support the freedom to read what you want.
But meanwhile, in the Miami-Dade district, the school board there, for the third year in a row, has rejected recognition of October as LGBTQ History Month. They don't like that. Right. The conservatives on the board and in the community say it sexualizes kids, and we must stick to the core curriculum.
Oh, yeah. If only. In New Hampshire, we told you about the trans girls who won their lawsuits to play on the teams, and another school board in North Sutton is letting a trans girl, junior, at Kearsarge High School, keep playing goalie on the girls' varsity soccer team, which is she's done for a year anyway, despite the anti-trans law and because of the federal case. The board voted 6-1 to let Maëlle Jacques continue to play. Her coach and administrators supported her, as did her teammates.
Very good.
Trump, by the way, wants to get rid of the Department of Education, and while Congress would have to accede to that, he could use the department to end support for LGBTQ students and staff.
Exactly. He can do, he's president. He can do anything he wants.
And be a dictator on day one.
But in Chicago, no, wait a minute.
No.
Colorado. The 10th Circuit federal court there has upheld Colorado's law banning conversion therapy. They say it's a legitimate government regulation of medical practice, which is what we've been saying for years and which we sometimes get enacted in these places. So Colorado's done it now, too.
And by the way, we've been following the story about how a handful of corporations have dropped their support for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and for participating in the Human Rights Campaign's Corporate Equality Index. A handful of corporations, some of them are big, like Ford and Coors and places, John Deere. But HRC reports that while 7 companies have bailed, the 2025 Corporate Equality Index is set for record participation, more than 1,400 participating businesses. Kelly Robinson, president of HRC, says businesses do it because it is what their workforce and their consumers demand. And even Jamie Dimon of Chase said, oh, no, we're going to keep doing that stuff. It makes us a better corporation.
Yeah, no, they've done stuff for years.
Not that they're, I mean, it is my bank, but it's not that they're such great,
well, whatever.
Social activists.
I'm sure they'd like to debate that with you. The Corporate Equality Index will continue to follow those 7 corporations that have dropped out and is deducting points from them for dropping out of the index. They could have dropped them completely, but no. And we got a nice note from a viewer saying, after watching your show on September 1st, we have decided to close our Lowe's account. Also, I cut up the card and sent it to their corporate office in North Carolina and told them to stick it where the sun don't shine.
Ooh.
That's the exact wording. We always boycott anti-gay businesses. The only way to hurt them is in the purse. You and Andy, have a great day.
We're trying.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Not a great day in Placerville, California, where the Proud Boys held a rally, which our viewer John tells us has the nickname of Old Hangtown, based on some incident during the gold rush. He lives there and says that Proud Boys have been active there since 2020, even marching in the Christmas parade, which is keeping a lot of decent people away from the Christmas parade. This week, their banner said, "Sodomites out of Hangtown." Of course, the cowardly Proud Boys, if you look at them there, weren't proud at all. They were all wearing masks and hats to obscure their identities. I don't know, so why do they use the word proud? What are they proud of?
Keep them out of Nassau County, Long Island. They'll all be arrested for wearing masks. There's an anti-mask there.
Oh, I think there are going to be a lot of Proud Boys at the Trump rally tonight. At,
yeah, but they did arrest someone with a keffiyeh for the other day, so maybe the Proud Boys will get arrested. On the other hand, a more joyful march in Washington, D.C., over the weekend, the Gender Liberation March.
There they are.
Yeah, which included Elliot Page. And it started a little small and got bigger and bigger and bigger, and they ended up outside the Heritage Foundation where they held a dance party.
And of course,
couple thousand
they're very
people.
concerned about this case that's gone to the Supreme Court about the constitutionality of state laws banning gender-affirming care for minors.
Absolutely. And Project 2025, that's what that was all about.
Sure.
Because that's the Heritage Foundation are the ones who wrote it.
Right. So let's go to San Francisco. Mayor London Breed signed the bill giving landmark status to the installation of Gilbert Baker's rainbow flag, the big one that is in Harvey Milk Plaza at the foot of Castro Street.
There's, go back to that picture a second. That's Charlie Beale on our right of the mayor in the blue shirt, long sleeve shirt.
With the Gilbert Baker Foundation.
Yeah, yes, head of the foundation who's been pushing for this for a long time. So congratulations to them. Now show the flag.
It's been there for a long time.
It certainly has. A couple of quibbles have been raised. They have, at Gilbert's instruction, they have a rule that the flag will never be lowered for any recognition of
somebody dying,
someone dying, the Pulse massacre, whatever. And I'm not thrilled with that. I wish that they would be able and willing to acknowledge important events with
even the Queen had to lower the standard on the top of the flag on top of Buckingham Palace when Diana died.
Exactly.
Under pressure.
And Gilbert also left very strict instructions about that flag only being raised. You can see there are other flagpoles in the background on that building. It would be nice to be able to show the variety of flags that have been created based on this one. So I'm a little sorry that, there isn't a little more leeway there, but
we shall
happy
see.
to have the flag enshrined.
All right, attention LGBTQ people of German descent and our allies. We're going to be marching in this Stubende parade in New York again on Saturday, September 21st. We're meeting at 11 a.m. on East 68th Street between Madison and 5th, led by Rick Landman. I'll be there. We've always been quite welcomed in this. It's a nice short march.
Yeah. All right, shall we talk about some of the people we lost and some of the bad things?
Yes.
In Chicago, a trans woman known as Red or Barbie, 25 years old, shot dead. Another person there injured.
She'd been hanging out with her friends on a street corner, shot multiple times, and critically injuring another. Her cousin has video footage of the shooting and wants it investigated as a hate crime.
The guy who did it ran away.
Red began transitioning at 16, was close to her family, and had been involved with a community program for LGBTQ plus and HIV positive youth.
In Minneapolis, Demarion Bible, who was
There on the left.
Yes. Convicted of killing trans woman Savannah Williams on the right.
39 years old.
Has been sentenced to 30 and a half years in prison for the murder.
He had paid to have sex with her, then he shot her in the head right after the sex, told his father he felt bad, but I had to do it. He was just sentenced, to that sentence. He was Williams, by the way, was a native and Cuban woman, survived by her partner.
The killer, Demarion, said that she made him feel suspicious.
Obviously, mental health issues. And then we'll talk about the loss of the legendary Chicago female impersonator, Chilli Pepper, who died. I didn't see an age listed, but she's been around.
I have age question mark in my notes. It was impossible to dig up an age.
Her appearances at the Baton Show Lounge in the 1980s and 90s.
Baton or Baton?
Baton, I guess, you're right. Baton attracted celebrities such as Madonna and Janet Jackson. She was a guest on The Donahue Show and Oprah Winfrey, where she spoke with dignity and clarity about the art form and the gay community and AIDS issues. And Tracy Baim, who was the founder of the Windy City Times, the LGBTQ paper out there, said she will never be replicated and praised her selfless work.
She was originally from Chile. She died of cancer And she was elected Miss Gay Chicago in 1974, 50 years ago.
She was known for her legs, off the shoulder blouses, and lip syncing to "I Will Survive." And in 1970, what I got here?
No, that's Miss Gay Chicago.
She always lived in the same apartment that she moved into since 1971. And she was always 39 years old.
Jack Benny.
She presented Oprah with her GLAAD Award in March.
Nice.
How about that?
Very nice. Well, Chicago icons.
Right.
All right. There is some controversy brewing around a WNBA legendary star, Breanna Stewart, who has done a deal for a sneaker that with Puma, which unfortunately is Harry Potter themed. Now, the Harry Potter, of course, J.K. Rowling, virulently anti-trans.
I mean,
relentlessly,
Stewart has
endlessly.
been an outspoken trans ally.
So is Puma. And Breanna is a married lesbian.
She's married to pro basketball player Marta Zargay since 2021. Stewart is the vice president of the Players Union. The low pay in the WNBA is what made Brittany Griner play in Russia and probably compelled her to take this deal.
Sure. Absolutely.
So she's got trans fans who are understandably upset and angry, and others, but, you know.
Just letting you know what's going on.
Okay.
All right, international news.
Well, the country of Georgia, which had been angling for EU membership, seems to be giving up on that and aligning with Russia. Their parliament passed a really sweeping, they did everything Russia did in one bill, all at once. And it only passed 84 to 66. It bans same-sex marriage, adoption by gay couples, gender-affirming care, changing gender on official documents, and endorsing or depicting LGBTQ relations or people in the media. Woo! And the Orthodox Church there is very influential. And of course, they passed a foreign influence bill back in June that sparked, where said if you get more than 20% of your budget from overseas, you're invalidated. I mean, that caused massive protests in Georgia. The people want to be part of the EU, but they've got this government, which has been propped up by a billionaire who made all his money in Russia.
Well, the billionaire is propping up these members of parliament.
Yes.
The president is more liberal and may veto this bill, but she
gets overridden.
And it's interesting because in this country, of course, you need a 2/3 vote to override a veto. But as you say, the vote was closer than that. So I don't know what the rules are in Georgia.
I think they overrode her on the foreign influence bill. She vetoed that.
Yeah. Virgin Australia Airlines, it turns out, spied on one of their flight attendants and then fired him for having a grinder hookup. The Fair Work Commission in Australia.
Are they demanding virgins among their stewards? Is that it?
Well, the Fair Work Commission ruled for the worker.
Yes.
And he'd been charged with violating the fatigue policy. He had asked for an extension on his work time because he was fatigued. And then he was in his hotel room and he called a grinder hookup. He said it helped him sleep. Well, I can understand that.
It can.
Yeah.
In France, 2 women were found guilty of libeling French First Lady Brigitte Macron. The women said Macron was born a man and is living as a transgender woman. They were fined $15,000. Ms. Macron at first ignored the story until it began to affect her parents and her family. Now we have over here MAGA provocateur Candace Owen, who amplified the story, padding it with salacious falsehoods such as President Macron being gay and being raped by his now wife when she was her brother and Emmanuel was 14. I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
But Brigitte got the final laugh by making a cameo appearance on Emily in Paris.
Huh. But I mean,
the current episodes.
The success of this suit harbors well for Imani Khalef's suit versus Elon Musk and J.K. Rowling for slandering her. Update on Tonga. We told you they have a new chief justice who is out gay in a country with an anti-sodomy law. But the Tongan king is refusing to sign a UN Charter on Women's Rights because he fears it could lead to same-sex marriage.
Who does he think he is, Phyllis Schlafly?
He's the king.
All right, can we move on?
Yes.
All
AIDS
right.
news?
AIDS and health news. Well, Gilead came out with an interesting report. We told you a few weeks ago that they were running trials on a drug called lenacapavir, which is a preventive drug against HIV.
It's like PrEP.
It is PrEP.
It is PrEP.
But it's just 2 injections a year, one every 6 months.
Yes.
So the first phase of the trial was on cisgender women in South Africa. And the result there was no new infections.
100% effective.
0. So then they move on to phase 2, which is men who have sex with men and non-binary people and trans women. And that came up with a very high protective rate.
Well, a high protective rate, but it also is 89% more effective than relying
Truvada.
on daily medication.
Yeah,
That's
Truvada,
the point.
yes.
Because people don't adhere to daily oral medication.
And this is just 2 injections
So it's a
year.
Gilead drug. It's listed at $34.50 a month. That's $3,450. It's used to treat HIV. Gilead has not set a price for its use as PrEP. Now, of course, Truvada is available as a generic now,
Yep.
and it's $20 a month. And
But that's the game, you know. Truvada is a Gilead drug, so they trot these things out one at a time so that they can keep their profits up.
But this is
as
something that
things
would
go
be
to
very
generics.
valuable, especially for like
Around the
homeless
world.
kids and things.
Yes.
How do you get them to adhere?
So phase 3 of the study is going to be cisgender women in the United States.
But they think
But the
that,
fight is going to be over pricing, you're
well,
right.
they're submitting it to the FDA by the end of the year for approval. It could hit the market by mid-2025.
And then the demonstrations will begin about accessibility.
All right, how about that J.D. Vance? He's now blaming the spike in HIV and TB in Ohio on Haitian immigrants, or what did he call them?
He says they're from Haiti.
He doesn't get around this
He
guy.
wants to be the vice president of the United States of America.
Now, there was a slight uptick in HIV in Springfield from like 17 cases to 33, but overall, infectious disease was way down.
Yep.
And including STIs in Springfield.
Look, they lie
And
about everything.
TB barely exists there.
They lie about the financial picture, they lie about disease, they lie about everything.
Okay.
Meanwhile, the New York City Department of Health is reporting that there are a few more Mpox cases in the city.
Yes.
41 discovered in August, which is up a little from July. So get your two Mpox
Yes.
shots.
Now, the strain circulating since 2022 outbreak, which is Clade or Clade 2.
Clade.
That's still the one here. The deadlier Clade 1 strain from Africa, which has spread a little bit outside there, has not been found in the United States yet. It probably will be eventually. You still got to get 2 shots 28 days apart. It will protect against both strains. It's available at city health clinics free and can be obtained at pharmacies without a prescription in New York. Go to vaccinefinder.nyc.gov for locations to get the vaccine, or just Google stuff in your area and find out how to get this vaccine and get vaccinated. Mpox.
3 trans women are suing Aetna Insurance Company. They were denied coverage for facial reconstruction. Aetna said it was merely a cosmetic procedure. The women suing say, no, they are unsafe on the streets if they are not better presenting. And of course, Aetna covers cisgender patients who need the surgery as medically necessary. And these trans women are saying, well, it's necessary for us too. It's not just cosmetic. It's really about our safety.
I went to a wonderful 70th birthday celebration for veteran gay and AIDS activist and performer Lee Raines, who uses his party to raise funds for our friends at Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS. So there's Lee with two legends, Rollerina and Jackie Rudin. And then there's another one of him with he does a cabaret act during the party. And the guy in the white shirt there, who's the
second from the right,
is Tom Viola, the longtime leader of Broadway Cares, who's agreed to come in, talk to us before he leaves.
Yes.
And here's another one with our own Bill Ballman, one of the many ACT UP veterans who was there for Lee. So this is all by way of reminding you that this weekend is the Broadway Cares annual flea market, Sunday, in and around Schubert Alley from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. All kinds of theatrical treasures, a live auction at 5 o'clock, lots of people signing autographs, including Julie Halston from our town, Max Van Essen. I could go on and on. Go to BroadwayCares.org for more information.
And let's go to entertainment news, where the big story of the week was the Emmys this weekend.
And I really enjoyed Eugene Levy and his son Dan Levy, who's out, hosting, and they started the show by paying tribute to the LGBTQ nominees in the audience,
who looked a little uncomfortable.
It's a big year for queer representation on TV. Nava Mao with her first nomination. Holland Taylor with her 9th. And then there's Jonathan Bailey and Matt Bomer, both recognized tonight for playing lovers and fellow travelers. Yeah. Proving that you can be nominated for playing gay, even if you're not straight.
And
it
really was.
Yes.
Dan is quite clever. So is his dad.
Well, and they also referred to Dan's crush on Colin Farrell, which was also cute.
All right. Then among the winners, The Traitors, which is hosted by Alan Cumming, won Best Reality Series, beating out RuPaul's Drag Race.
Which has won for year after year after year.
Cumming, by the way, has just been appointed Artistic Director of the Pitlochry Festival, Scotland's rurally based arts organization.
Yeah, hey, come on, there's a lot of culture in Scotland. And Cumming won for Best Host of a reality competition show, too. So Traitors, big winner. I'm surprised. I watched the show, but I would never have predicted it would win Emmys.
Okay.
It's okay.
And then the Governor's Award was given to the longtime producer, out gay Greg Berlanti, who has pioneered so much gay inclusion in mainstream TV, from Dawson's Creek, doing a same-sex kiss on. And he gave quite a moving speech, so let's just go to that.
Now, there wasn't a lot of gay characters on television back then, and I was a closeted gay kid, and it's hard to describe how lonely that was at the time. There was no internet to connect with other queer kids, no LGBTQ plus advocacy groups in schools. Back then, the only way to tell if another kid might be gay was if he also watched Dynasty Dallas and could name all 4 of the Golden Girls. It's true. Then the initial reports of AIDS started showing up on the news, and for the first time in my life, I saw openly gay men on television. Too many were dying, but they were also in the streets. Men holding hands with other men, marching and fighting for their lives. And they gave me hope that I might one day have their courage to come out and share my truth with the world. The other thing that happened because of a television was that I announced to my family the first TV creator I wanted to be, Jim Henson. And my mom got business cards made up that said Greg Berlanti, puppeteer, and she put these cards all around town. And I started doing puppet shows for kids' birthdays. But that was it. Someone believed in me, that I could tell stories for a living. It's why I'm so appreciative of this honor. It won't remind me of a single show, but instead will remind me of all the people, like my mom, whose shoulders I rode in on tonight. Too many to mention. All the teachers and friends and representatives and executives across the years. Actors and crews who made real the worlds we dreamt up. And I'll remember all the writers I dreamt those worlds up with. It will remind me of my Warner Brothers TV family that's given me a home from my beginnings, led by the great Peter Roth, to our amazing leaders today, Channing Dungey and David Zaslav. and my seatmates this evening who stand in for all the other coworkers and family who made this moment possible. The amazing Carlo Gawa, my producing partner, the incomparable Sarah Schechter. My loving sister Dina and my father Gene are here. My dad was a businessman his whole life, and yet he made me study theater in college because he knew it's what I loved. Lastly, my soulmate, my husband Robbie Rogers, who's not just here for me, but because he produced The Fellow Travelers, which everyone should watch. It's amazing. And when I think about it, to have traveled that distance from that scared kid years ago to this stage with my husband in the audience and our two beautiful children, Caleb and Mia, watching at home, go to bed as soon as this is over. When I think about how much the world had to change to make the life I'm living now possible, even in hindsight, it's unimaginable to me. Sadly, the one person who did imagine this night first is not here to celebrate it with us. We lost my mom several years ago to cancer, but the belief she had in me still lingers on long after she's gone. That's how powerful belief is. And her belief travels through me and out to all of the kids out there who today may feel alone or other or scared to share their truth with the world. If my mom were here, she would want you to know that you are loved and you are worthy and you have a story to tell, and we need those stories now more than ever. And she believes in you, and I do too. So hurry up and get here. Until then, from the bottom of my heart, thank you all very much.
Well, he says it was wonderful, and he says he couldn't have imagined, but of course he's one of the people who imagined it and made it happen.
Yes, I would have liked a little acknowledgement that there were women activists at the start too. Clearly he wasn't paying any attention to women, but that's okay. It really was a lovely speech. And to talk about parental support is so important, because not everyone has that, and it's easy to despair when you don't have it.
Right. How about that baby reindeer?
Well, it's I've watched Baby Reindeer, and it's a little tough as a show, but it really is full of LGBTQ people, 3 of whom were captured in a shot here at the Emmys. On the left, Jessica Ginsburg, who is an out lesbian and won an Emmy. In the middle, Nava Mao, who was mentioned, who was a presenter, out trans woman. And then finally on the right, Richard Gadd, who this happened to is a real life story, stalked by unbalanced woman, played by Jessica on the left. And he won as for writing it, for starring in it, and I think it won Best Limited Series. Yep. So it was a big winner. It was quite the event. And there has been talk of should they do another season, and the answer is no, they're not going to.
Well, at the creative...
Well, the story is over. They did the whole story.
Yeah. At the Creative Emmys, gay songwriter Benj Pasek, with his collaborator Justin Paul, became the 20th and 21st creatives to achieve EGOT status, with a win for Best Original Song for Which of the Pickwick Triplets Did It from Only Murders in the Building. These are the guys who wrote Dear Evan Hansen on Broadway and the Oscar-winning song from La La Land, City of Stars.
And it's nice to continue to follow the evolution of Jodie Foster as an out lesbian from her days of being reluctant to talk about it. And, if Hinckley was trying to murder Reagan in your name, you might be a little reluctant to be too visible too. So
she wins.
Yeah, there she is with her
True
wife,
Detective, Night Country,
Alexandra Hedison. And when the win is announced,
they go smooching.
Nice kiss. Everyone behind them seems happy and delighted.
And then she got up on the stage and she thanked her wife and called her the love of my life.
It really was very lovely.
Yes.
Now, you may be wondering why I might also be excited about Jean Smart being a big winner.
I know you're a big fan.
I love Jean Smart. I cannot get over her character on design, designing women, to her character on Hacks. So the New Yorker republished an interview they'd done with her a few years ago, which was quite wonderful and fascinating. You can look it up. But a factoid emerged that took me by surprise. She talked about her whole career and how she started in theater in New York. And what was her first big appearance in theater in New York? last summer at Bluefish
A
Cove.
lesbian play.
Oh my God. The director had scheduled her to star in a Jane Chambers play. Jane Chambers got wind of it and said, no, you're not doing that. Here, take this one I have in a drawer. Last summer at Bluefish Cove. And Jean Smart stars in that and is completely blasé about it and delighted to have done it. But Hacks on Max or HBO is a wonderful, wonderful show. I highly recommend that.
Got an opera to tell you about of The Handmaid's Tale by Paul Reuters and librettist Paul Bentley, based on Margaret Atwood's prescient novel. It premiered in San Francisco at the War Memorial Opera House to rave reviews and will run through October 4th. And it's going to have a live stream available from September 23rd to the 25th. Go to sfopera.com/digital. American mezzo-soprano Irene Roberts stars as handmaid Offred.
All right, we've got a few more things to hit fast. Do you want to tell us about the Adam Lambert production? He's taking over from Eddie Redmayne in Cabaret at the Kit Kat Club here in New York.
Yes, and the show runs through March 30th at the August Wilson Theater.
And you saw The Roommate.
I did. It's two bona fide stars performing in Jen Silverman's play. To prevent getting their entrances interrupted by applause, Mia Farrow and Patti LuPone come out before the play gets started and let everybody just adore them and clap for them. And then they leave the stage because they don't want it to interrupt the flow. Now, Mia is Sharon, an Iowa retired housewife living alone who takes in a roommate, Robin, played by LuPone. The setup is comedic. Robin is supposed to be a lesbian, vegan, blah, 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 from the Bronx. It doesn't quite make any sense. But it's very, very funny for a long time, and then it gets kind of dark. I would say their comic timing is perfect, and the laughs are pretty abundant. It's directed by Jack O'Brien, a great, great director. So no spoilers about what happens here. It's a rare opportunity to see two old pros and their friends, well into their 70s, even though the play was written for people who were 55. It's at the Booth through December 15th.
A reminder that English Teacher on FX is the gayest show on television at the moment. You might want to check that out.
It's quite sexy.
It is, but it's just gay, gay, gay all day long. And the Red Hot group that did Red Hot and Blue compilation albums, great singing stars singing Cole Porter songs, and they've done like 20 different albums over the years to raise money for AIDS and other causes. They have a new one out, and Sade is on the album singing a song in honor of her trans son.
There were 100 artists involved.
Yeah, and it's called Transa, Transa.
Sam Smith, Jane County,
Andre 3000.
Lauren Order, who's trans.
And it's done in honor of Sophie, the young trans singer who died in Greece a few years ago. And that's it for us, and we will be back next week.
We're
yes,
happy
I will
to give
be
you
here.
some good news.
Well, we'll see. See you next week.
Bye.